What is the risk if he doesn't provide more information or these allegations are found somehow to be untrue or uncredible? What is the risk?
Real.
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Pierre spoke with the media outside the House today about Trudeau's affordability crisis and housing.
He also commented on Trudeau's quote-unquote intelligence from CSIS yesterday. Let's take a look.
With today's inflation data, just inflation strikes again. Not only is inflation up, it is rising and rising faster. Inflation in Canada, after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, is not only high, but it is broad. It is across all different products and services. Whether you include or exclude food and gas, inflation is now double its target. 2 months ago, Chrystia Freeland declared victory against inflation and asked everyone to give her a pat on the back. Since that time, the inflation rate has risen 43%. It is interesting that the further and further we move away from COVID, the more and more inflation is rising, which continues to prove what I said all along, which is that COVID had nothing to do with inflation. It is entirely a made in Canada, made by a government-made inflation that is the result of deficits and taxes on Canadians. And it's no longer just me saying it. Everyone has slowly but grudgingly come on to my point of view. The Governor of the Bank of Canada has said that the deficits are driving inflation. The former Liberal Finance Minister, John Manley, says deficits are driving inflation. Even Chrystia Freeland said that deficits pour fuel on the inflationary fire right before she decided to pour $60 billion of that fuel on that fire.
I am very mindful of the importance of not pouring fiscal fuel on the flames of inflation.
So this is more proof that Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost. But neither is Jagmeet Singh. And this is, I'd like to take a moment to talk about greed.
Yes, let's talk about greed. Let's talk about Jagmeet Singh and greed, Pierre. This is what everybody has been talking about in the Conservative community. It's what we've seen in the comments. People are asking, when are they going to go after the NDP? Well, everybody, as we surmised last night when we started to hear Melissa Lantsman talk about the government as the NDP Liberal government, our guess was that you were going to hear that going forward. You're going to hear that repetition in order to really put the heat on the backbencher caucus of the NDP. Now it's open season on the NDP.
You want to talk about greed? Jagmeet Singh has sold all of our souls for his golden pension. He knows his constituents are suffering. He knows the rest of us in this country are suffering. But what does he do? He takes to Twitter and he acts like a big, bad, tough guy while still supporting the Liberal government. And that's why the Conservatives are referring to them as the Liberal NDP government, because that's what they are.
Yeah, they literally are. If it weren't for Jagmeet Singh, there would be no government right now, and there would be an election, and everybody knows it.
And price gouging. The greed and price gouging of the Liberal NDP government, which takes more and more money from hardworking Canadians and raises the cost of government, which raises the cost of everything. After 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, everything costs more. Work doesn't pay. Housing costs have doubled. And it gets worse every single day. What is most terrifying is that the inflation Trudeau has ballooned will put further pressure on the Bank of Canada to increase rates further at a time when Canadians are the most indebted people in the entire G7. What are people going to do? How are they going to pay their mortgages if Trudeau's inflation forces the bank to raise rates yet again? We can't afford that. And that's why we need to replace this costly coalition that takes your money, taxes your food, and doubles your housing costs, with a common sense conservative government that frees people to earn powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods. We will do it with a common sense plan that includes axing the NDP Liberal carbon tax, capping spending and cutting waste to eliminate the inflationary deficits, and incentivizing municipalities to remove bureaucracy so that we can build homes that Canadians can afford.
For everybody who's asked us or who has said to us, made the comment that they never say that they're going to get rid of the tax, he just said it again. Pierre's been saying it all summer, and he just said it again. You heard it from his lips to your ears that when the Conservatives get into government, they are going to axe the carbon tax.
You hear Pierre saying over and over again, the NDP Liberal government, the NDP Liberal carbon tax. They weren't saying this before. They were just going after the Liberals independently and the NDP independently. Not anymore. Because they are treating them as one unit, which they absolutely should.
Yeah, 2 days into the new session, and we can already see that Pierre's getting a little aggressive.
Conservative MPs were calling for this in debate yesterday on Bill C-48. They're already calling for a hint at a non-confidence vote. They weren't really doing this out in the open prior to the summer break, but already it's getting interesting.
On the issue of India, does Canada need to change its relationship with India in light of the intelligence the Prime Minister shared yesterday?
I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean with all the facts. We need to know all of the evidence possible so that Canadians can make judgments on that.
Should there be response? They just expelled an Indian diplomat. Should they do more in response to this news?
I think we need to see more facts. The Prime Minister hasn't provided any facts. He provided a statement, and I will just emphasize that he didn't tell me any more in private than he told Canadians in public, so we want to see more information.
So one of the interesting things that we learned today is that, you know, people have been criticizing Pierre. Well, he didn't go and get his security clearance, so he can't see the intelligence. Well, Jagmeet Singh has been cleared for intelligence, and the intelligence wasn't shared with him either, okay? So for everybody saying, you know, if Pierre actually went and got clearance, he'd be able to see this. No. Trudeau didn't show either of them what the intelligence actually said.
They were told ahead of the public. They were told ahead of when it was announced in the House of Commons, but they were not told like details. All they were told was what we were told.
Right. So there's no facts before any of the opposition leaders on what this alleged report actually says. Again, I think Pierre and even Jagmeet are like, this is curious timing.
It is curious timing. I mean, Trudeau got back from India, where he had a disastrous trip, not only with, you know, his plane breaking down and all that, but just on a diplomatic level. He did not have a good time in India. The Prime Minister of India does not respect him. Many international leaders do not respect him. So it was a disaster there. And then he gets back home to Canada, and the very first session of the House of Commons for this session, he announces this intelligence report to the House. Then last night, as we shared to our community, Canada expelled the Indian diplomat. And then by the time we woke up this morning, we saw that India had expelled Canada's diplomat.
The other interesting thing is Trudeau has admitted that he discussed this with Prime Minister Modi while he was over there.
So he knew. But
waited an entire week until he was back in front of the cameras so he can tell everybody what happened. So very, very curious.
What is the risk if he doesn't provide more information or these allegations are found somehow to be untrue or uncredible? What is the risk?
Real.
That's a very interesting answer from Pierre.
Well, that's Pierre for you, though. He's very blunt.
So what is the risk if these allegations are true? Real. Yeah, it's a very real risk because that causes an international incident.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, tensions were already high between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Trudeau. And if these allegations are not true, That's an absolute disaster.
Well, and the whole thing is so much more complicated than people even know. Right now, the United States is trying to build a partnership with India as a foray into Asia with everything going on over there. So India is really important to the United States strategically. And the fact that Trudeau is like waving this around is very problematic for the United States. And so the United States is just like, oh my God, like, can we just get through this, please? Because we have more important things to deal with. So that's the grander scope on the international stage. But this is the thing. Trudeau doesn't understand this stuff. He doesn't understand foreign policy. He doesn't understand political strategy. He doesn't understand world implications when it comes to playing on his ego.
Well, what specific information, what specific facts do you think Canadians and yourself need to know in this situation?
We need to have the evidence that that allowed the Prime Minister to come to the conclusions he made yesterday.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Do you agree with the government's decision to go public with the intelligence, and if so, why?
I would have to have more evidence to make a judgment on that.
Good answers by Pierre to these questions.
Well, because so much is up in the air, like he just does not have all the information.
Well, and like, it's a good question. Do you think that they should have gone public with this? And Pierre's question, or Pierre's answer, is very, very well thought out. And he thought it out in less than a second. I don't know if it was a good decision to go public because I haven't seen what Trudeau has seen. It's easy to just sit there and speculate when you don't have all the information. So if it's possible, if these allegations are true, that maybe it was a good decision. But personally, I don't think this was a good decision. I don't think one meeting with Modi talking about this is going to get anything done. And this is the problem when it comes to the left. It's yes or no. You need to sit down and have an adult conversation in order to work out how to move forward.
Right. Not everything is black and white.
And this is what the left doesn't know how to do. So, yeah, a lot more conversations need to be had.
I do find it interesting that he knew about vast foreign interference by Beijing, and he said nothing and he did nothing. Just very, very interesting that was the approach he took in that case.
So we end on this.
When we heard this, we watched this video beforehand, and when we heard this, we literally turned to each other and gave each other a high five, because this is exactly what we said yesterday, that how quickly Trudeau came out with this India information and expelled India's diplomat like the same day. And look how long it took with the Chinese interference.
2 years. 2 years, and only when it became public. This didn't become public. Trudeau made it public. Right? So, sorry, this doesn't wash the way you handle one country's foreign interference versus another one.
Well, and it's curious to me because I almost wonder if he dealt with the India situation so hastily so that he could say, you know, see, look, I'm doing something, because I wonder what we're going to find out as a result of the public inquiry.